Well, thank you, Eric. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, man. Super stoked to be here.
Just to give everybody an introduction, Eric and I used to work together, and we have both broken free of the chains, the corporate chains. And he is also one of the founders?
Yeah, the founder.
The founder of OST or OSTbloc Corporation, and also is starting up a blog called Unjaded. And is working on a skateboard company called Data. So, you got a lot of different titles here, and I do want you to break some of those down.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
then we can kind of get into how you got there. But what's OSTbloc?
So OSTbloc is really kind of like a thought experiment, art project type of thing. But I wanted to make it a business because it's very difficult for artists to be able to sustain themselves nowadays. Like the trope of like the starving artist, it's not good.
Yeah, it's not.
It's a very romantic concept, but in reality, like, you should be able to eat and survive and prosper off of the things you do. So creating OSTbloc kind of allowed an umbrella for me to be able to pursue different projects and keep everything organized, while also like creating some continuity throughout the whole process. And it's cool. Like I have my own projects like Unjaded and Data, but it also allows other artists that I work with kind of space if they want to come in to be able to like use some of the resources I've begun to acquire and develop to make their own things. So it kind of acts in, that corporation umbrella sense where like it helps the financial aspects of things, but it also can kind of be like an incubation, or like a creative consultancy sort of space too for other artists and people trying to, not be starving artists.
Yeah. So you said you have kind of like a funny reason for the name. So
yeah.
So where did the name come from? OSTbloc, like toast block.
So Ost like toast. That's kind of the way to remember, because a lot of people want to say Ost, like cost or.
When I see it, I just think ODST, like Halo.
So Ost is German for East, Block is block in German. And in high school, I took 4 years of German culture and language classes, and I just kind of became pretty interested in things. And then there was 2 documentaries I watched in German about skateboarders in East Germany and artists in East Berlin during the communist occupation, and kind of the mentality that they had to like live out their dreams and do the things they want to do in spite of the amount of roadblocks, no pun intended, put in front of them, because of the political system and the economic system. And, I forget the name of the documentary, but in part of it, like they're using trash bags and garbage to like make fashion, to make clothes, like more like conceptual things, not like t-shirts or hoodies or anything like that.
Sure.
But the dedication to the craft and the passion that they had for their art was just so profound that I wanted to kind of make it like an homage to these people who were oppressed politically, but still found a way to get out their dreams and live creatively and do the things they wanted to do. So OSTbloc, East Bloc is really like a tribute to them, and it was inspired by them.
That's awesome. I was not expecting that to be the origin of it, but I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's a little quirky, but I think like, being able to like explain it a little, it's a little long-winded, but like when people hear it, they're like, oh, like, that makes sense. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, and I think it's catchy to say OSTbloc like toast block.
Yeah, exactly. Like I have a couple of graphics I've been working on where it's Ost like toast, and a lot of toast, a lot of pieces of bread with it. So that'll be pretty cool to put out in the near future.
Yeah, and the key thing with toast is like getting that perfect ratio of golden brown, like not overdoing it.
Exactly.
You got to get some crispiness to it.
Yeah, it's funny. I've actually like, maybe in the last year, I've just realized how much I actually like toast, like just as a breakfast thing. Like for a long time, it's like, it's toast, I don't care about it. And now like I'll just have some coffee and toast, just a very plain Jane breakfast, but like for whatever reason, it does it
does the job.
Exactly.
Well, especially now that you switched to being a vegetarian, so that's got to be another aspect of it, is that it's a good filler.
It is actually like toast and like some raspberry preserves, some strawberry jam. It's great. Most places have it.
Yeah, no, it's true. You could pretty much get that anywhere.
Exactly, and it's it's not super expensive either. And bread is, I believe, for the most part, sustainable, or it can be, at least.
So what motivated you to actually take the steps of actually starting the company? Because a lot of people have ideas like that, but then they don't actually go do it. So what pushed you?
To be honest, OSTbloc is something that I had incubated probably since I was like 19. So it took like 5 years to figure out what exactly it was going to be. In my head, I had known like what that name was going to be, what it was going to kind of exist as. But I had a magazine that I had previously published with a buddy of mine. We had that for like 2 or 3 years. It was called Runaway. And while I was running and doing that, you know, as in a magazine capacity, like you're interviewing other people and you're really sharing their ideas and their stories. And to be honest, like got kind of selfish because I've always kind of thought that like I think of things a little differently and I like to apply different lenses to things. And I wanted a way to be able to share my stuff and my ideas in a creative space, not just in like a journalistic perspective, even though I do love writing and I think journalism is super important. I mean, I love magazines, still collect them. But I wanted a way to be able to do that. So when the magazine went on hiatus, that's when I really kind of tried to figure out like how this is going to be, what this is going to be. Like, I don't want to make just another t-shirt brand. I don't want to limit myself to just like soft goods or, you know, data is a part of OSTbloc, but it's a skateboard company. I didn't want to limit myself to just that. So I wanted to figure out a way to be able to like do everything that I wanted to do. And it ended up being kind of, you know, this bigger project that allows other things to exist under it. And then the name, when it came down to it, the name kind of fit everything. It was really right there in front of me the whole time. Just had to kind of find my way home with it.
Yeah. And sometimes like those kind of discoveries, they're in your subconscious.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of parts of it that might be in your conscious mind.
Yeah.
But it's kind of getting it all to bubble up at the right moment. Timing is important. Timing's everything. You got to let something really just grow and develop internally before it finally manifests itself into the real world.
Exactly. And the other thing too is like you need, at least I think, like you definitely need like experiences, a lot of like real world experiences. Like you need to kind of be around other successful people to see like what they're doing with their things, how they're organizing their creations, what they're trying to do, you know. And being and having the magazine allowed me like good firsthand experience with running a company and producing like a physical product. Like we published physical magazines, which in you know the 21st century is pretty wild.
Yeah, right. Everything's on an iPad now.
Exactly. But like I said, I love like reading physical copies of things. I think there's like there's a true value to it. But like being able to see what other people were doing and how they were organizing their stuff was, I think, the biggest thing. We did a cover story with Rello. He's one of the dudes who runs Fat Tiger Workshop, huge homegrown like Chicago streetwear company, and got to know him a little bit and really got to see up and close like how they had organized their project. And Fat Tiger Workshop is basically like the store that they have, but there's a bunch of like sub labels underneath it. And Joe Fresh Goods, who's been going crazy right now with like shoes and clothing and stuff, is one of them. Rello's there, Vic Lloyd, Dez, like those three guys just got like an Adidas collaboration. Joe had a New Balance one, and seeing how they kind of put that together in a streetwear lens was very like, there's a lot of like good things I learned from that, but taking that concept and breaking out of just like a clothing space was really, I think, the biggest thing that I got out of it. Because I mean, like, you don't want to be stuck in one place.
No, definitely not. And you don't want to typecast yourself in a way where like, oh, this is all I can do.
Exactly.
Because people want to put you there.
Yeah. Oh yeah, without a doubt. I mean, you see it all the time. Like people really kind of get like cornered into a role that they enjoy, but it limits themselves. You know, like having a store would be super cool. I hope maybe one day I can do that, but I don't want to just be like a shop owner. I feel like I have more to contribute than, you know, just like a t-shirt company or just running a store or just making skateboards or something like that.
Yeah. And not that there's anything wrong with people who that's all they do, but that, you know, sometimes you know that like that's something that I want to do and I'll be happy with it, but it's not the thing. That's not the only thing.
Exactly.
I want to do a bunch of shit.
Yeah, 100%. I think like a lot of that comes from like reading. Like I love to read. That's probably like my biggest hobby and pastime. Like I'll just read for days. I go to like used bookstores all over the city. And
what's the most recent book you read?
So I've actually been reading like crazy. So it's March. I've read 6 books this year. Oh
shit. Okay. Okay. You're not fucking around, Eric.
The most recent one I read that was like a novel and not an architecture book, because I'm really passionate about architecture and urban planning. It was called The Devil's Mile, and it's just a like a history of the Bowery and the Lower East Side of New York. And it takes it from back when the Dutch settled in the 1600s to now. So it was pretty interesting. I love New York. I think it's a very cool place. Actually planning on moving in the next year or so to New York.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You're leaving the second city.
Yeah, I know. I've been a lifer here pretty much. Outside of the 1 year I was in Iowa for college, but my whole family's from here, and it's cool. I love Chicago, but I kind of want to spread my wings a little bit.
Yeah, well, and there are different opportunities in New York versus here, and certainly more mild weather, honestly.
Yeah, I didn't realize how different the weather was. The first time I went to New York, it was in January a couple years ago for my birthday, and there was like a random like 55-degree day in January, and I'm pretty sure it was like maybe like 14 degrees and snowing here.
Yeah. Yeah, no, Chicago, and I didn't know that too either until I moved here. I came from Florida, so everything fucking north is cold. But when I realized that, like, no, Chicago's like 10 to 20 degrees colder on average than New York. And although New York can match Chicago sometimes, it definitely gets warmer, and it definitely gets warmer faster.
Yeah.
I feel like you get more seasons in New York.
Yeah.
Whereas here it's like there's summer and there's winter, and spring is basically like mild winter.
Yeah.
And fall is like mild winter. Yeah, it's basically mostly winter.
Yeah, it definitely is. The weirdest thing about Chicago is, and I don't know if there's a place that's quite like it, I have never been to a place that gets as cold or as hot. Because in the summers here, it can get like in the low hundreds, and the humidity is terrible. But conversely, like we had a polar vortex last year where it was like negative 30 degrees with like a negative 50-degree wind chill.
Yep.
So it was, it's the North Pole for a couple of days there.
And yet this winter, very mild.
Yeah,
it's going to be 60 tomorrow.
Yeah, I know. I can't wait to get outside.
Yeah, I know. That's why I planned this out, because I'm recording this podcast with you. I'm recording another one with Marcus as well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but later today. So like I spaced it out. I got time to recharge the phones and whatever. I'm going to the Bernie Sanders rally. Yeah. Shout out to Bernie Sanders.
Huge fan.
Yeah, huge fan. He's in a tough spot, but he can still do it. He's actually in a better spot than he was versus Hillary Clinton at the same point. But I don't want to get too into that because that's probably going to get outdated by the time I drop this episode. But yeah, I mean, Joe Biden, like, the dude can't talk. So give him one debate, and I think people will see that, that's not a good playbook to run.
This election, not to be super specific about the context of politics right now, but this election, specifically the Democratic primary, has like made me loathe like the Democratic Party and the establishment.
Yep.
And I'm a very progressive guy.
Yep. Same.
Like very, very progressive. I am so fed up. So like just like jaded, no pun intended, and angry about like how things are. And like I'm so just disgusted.
They've put more effort into stopping Bernie Sanders than they will against Trump.
Yeah. The wild thing is like it really is like the Republican Party and the Democratic Party schematically are very similar. They're both trying to protect like moneyed interests.
The gig economy.
Yeah.
Like, their little gig flow. Like,
exactly.
I'm a consultant. Now I'm a political person. Now I'm a consultant again.
Yeah. And the thing that really like makes me upset about it, specifically with Democrats, is like they're using like emotion and the illusion of like a belief system to justify their actions, whereas the Republicans are very cut and dry about it. So I have like a smidge of respect for them, even though I don't agree with any policy on that side of the aisle. They're very open with what they want to do and how they want to do it and why they want to do it. Whereas the Democrats, I don't want to say were, because I don't consider myself a Democrat anymore.
Yeah.
They're trying to use smoke and mirrors to justify it. And it sucks because like it's just regular people at the end of the day who are going to be hurt by it. Like, they're so insulated from everything that like none of these policy decisions really affect things.
Yeah,
so,
not for them.
Yeah.
They affect everybody else.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't want to get too off track on that, but it's I guess that my point with that was just like, I got a lot going on today, but it's fun and I feel like I'm doing something that's useful.
Yeah, those are the best days when you're just back to back to back and you're running and going. It makes you feel alive.
Yeah, because then on Sunday I'm fucking not doing shit. On Sunday, I'm relaxing. I'm enjoying the 60-degree weather.
Yeah.
It's going to be great.
It'll be so nice, dude. And you're up here right near the lake too. You can definitely get out and like leverage the parks and just be outside.
I'm going to.
It's so nice.
Yeah, it's going to be. So I want to get to the blog because that is going to be released, right?
Yeah.
It isn't officially live yet. It
Monday,
might be by the time I drop this.
Yeah, it'll be up by the time the podcast goes out. But I've just been like writing like crazy, reading like crazy because books are a pretty big part of it so far. I was actually just doing a photo shoot yesterday for a book and a review I did on some footwear. But basically, like the concept of Unjaded is this: like right now, with social media and how democratized things are in terms of becoming a quote unquote creative or an artist, people are very sensitive and very touchy about the things that they like and the things that they produce. But art and a lot of things that you just put out into the public sphere, those are subjective. You know, people are supposed to have a reaction. You know, people aren't just supposed to say, oh, that's so good. You know, oh, that's awesome. You know, in reality, somebody could be a terrible photographer. There could be a terrible shoe, but just because somebody's name's on it, you know, you feel like you have to like it. You know, it's kind of people misinterpreting respect. You can respect the person and respect the process and all the work they put into it and just not like it.
Yeah, totally.
And I don't think there is enough of that at all.
Yeah.
So Unjaded is about being able to like freely and openly like criticize and still respecting things. So right now there's a lot of positive stuff that I've put up just because I've been in a space where I've been in a good headspace and putting more energy into things that I like and care about. But there's definitely some stuff that I've been working on that's like, hey, this is really just not good. You know, it's like, it's fine. Like a great example are the Travis Scott dunks that just came out. He did a shoe with Nike and he had like plaid and paisley as the print for them, and he had rope laces, and to me I was just like, these are gross. And he did a little ad campaign with Nike about it, and he just kind of looked like a kook. A kook is just like in skateboarding, it's somebody who is kind of like a culture vulture and is like acting like they know skating and stuff. And he had like a VX camera, and he was using like a fisheye lens for like a long lens thing, so when you're farther away, and using like long lens when you're really close. And to the trained eye, you're just like, this is so dumb. Like, you know, like this is kind of like a waste. Like you can put out shoes, that's fine, but like don't try and like mime somebody else's like culture or things that they like. So you know, the blog isn't going to be up by the time that's not relevant because everything moves super quick. But that's like an example of it, you know, where it's just like, it's just not good. You don't have, like, you can like it, you know, but like,
you can still respect Travis Scott for his music and whatever, and be like, I didn't like these shoes. Yeah.
And it's funny, like Travis Scott to me is like a super polarizing dude. Like I like a lot of his music, and there's other music and I'm like, that's just not good. It's fine. You know, I don't think that he's a terrible human. I don't think he should never record another song again. It's just like, I don't like it.
Well, and there's a difference between constructive criticism and then just being a fucking hater.
Oh yeah, definitely, you know? definitely.
Or being a troll, which there's unfortunately way too many of those online.
Absolutely. And that's the thing that's so wild to me is everything's so polarized. Like you can't just be like, oh, you know, like that's fine, I guess. I don't particularly like it, and be like respectful about that, like respecting the process and the energy that people put into things, because you can put a lot of energy into stuff, and just sometimes like things just don't come out good. But at the same time, like it's so negative and so like positive, and so it's just too polarizing. You know, there's not enough gray area, and I think that's kind of indicative of everything that we're kind of living in right now.
Well, it's sensationalism.
Yeah.
I mean, it's literally all about, how can I get you to click on this? Yeah. I want you to click on this, and the only way I'm going to do it is with the most salacious title possible. Yeah. You know, I'm going to say something that misrepresents maybe the situation, and then in the article I might clarify that title's kind of bullshit, but they don't care because they got you on the title.
You know what, that happens a lot? Pitchfork. With their music reviews. I love Pitchfork, read Pitchfork all the time, great music taste. Pitchfork Festival is going to be 15 years this summer in Chicago. They do their album reviews. They'll put like a wild title. Somebody else will write the whole piece, and then like I think it's the staff will come together, or like the editorial staff will come together and rate it. And you know, you could have like the Kanye album, I think the most recent one he did, the
gospel one.
Actually, I'm sorry, the one before the last one. I'm not a Kanye fan anymore either.
Like Kids See Ghosts, or
it was his individual album, but on that run there was like Kids See Ghosts and the Pusha one. It was that album. Yeah. The person who wrote it up was like, this is really isn't that good. And then the editorial staff gave it like an 8 or something. And it was just like, yo, like why?
Did you like that album?
I didn't. I honestly, so to all my friends out there, like they'll heard me say this before, but I'm not a Kanye fan anymore. Mm-hmm. The name of the magazine that I had was Runaway, and it was based on the song Runaway. We performed it at the VMAs. That was like a watershed moment in my life, literally life-changing. But I don't love him. I don't love how the culture puts him up on a pedestal. I don't think people criticize him enough, or they just look to criticize him. There's not a lot of like honest like review or reflection on like what he does and what he is. And I don't think hero worship's good. And a lot of like Kanye fans that I've come across in my life are kind of hero worshipers. They can't just like assess, you know, what's been made and what's not. So I'm not a Kanye fan. I don't really listen to his stuff. I don't really care when like new Yeezys come out or like new music anymore. But
yeah, he's a polarizing figure, and justifiably so, to be honest.
Yeah, I think he tends to do that on purpose. It was a while ago when he was on like a tweet storm. He put a couple of tweets out with some books in it, and there were 2 like performance artist books. They're like about 2 performance artists, and I think he's kind of on that wave right now, where he's doing things as art, or under the guise of art. And art is such a broad term, and he's a smart dude. There's no doubt about it. But you know, when you're at the size and scale that he is, it's you kind of have you have a responsibility to be responsible.
Yeah, no, 100%.
To not be you know, like you have a lot of sway over people, and you shouldn't abuse that.
Yeah,
people do every day in those positions, but you know, you shouldn't. At least
I think that it's really important for people like him, especially when he's suffering from mental illness, right? Like, you need to use that platform to educate people on it, not stigmatize it further. Yeah. Which is kind of what he's done. He's almost stigmatized it further when he should have taken the opportunity to use it as, I mean, I know that he claims he tried with that album. You know, the I'm bipolar, I love it, or you know, whatever. Like, the album's just called Yay, but I think that was on the album artwork. But it just, to me, seems like he's actively doing harm to mental illness through the ways that he's dealing with it. And maybe part of it is because he's not able to emotionally regulate. But the other part of it is that he's got obviously too many yes men around him.
I was just about to say that.
That are not holding him to account. You need to have a team that like holds you in check when you're that powerful.
Exactly. I think though that like it's a cult of personality over there though. Between that and, I mean, for a long time, I would kind of defend how he was, like, who he chose to marry, Kim Kardashian, everything. But that has to just be the biggest bubble of, like, there's no questioning anything over there. It's just, like, you just do whatever you want. It's not even, like, real life.
I mean, you could argue the same thing with Trump. You could argue the same thing with Bloomberg, right?
Oh, God.
Like, all those yes men told him to go on stage.
Dude spent $500 million on a campaign that, like, I mean, I can't in like earnest believe that he honestly thought that he could really win.
He didn't. Like, it was Operation Stop Bernie. Yeah. And he thought, Joe Biden can't do it. This guy can't remember where he was yesterday. Yeah. You know, and so they were thinking, but then once Joe Biden won South Carolina, they're like, all right, I guess we'll pretend that this is a winning narrative. And so then the media shoved it down your throats for 3 days, and then a bunch of people believed it because that's all the media was telling them. Yeah. And then Super Tuesday happened, which went not where I thought it was going to go at all.
This is an interesting one.
But I do think that it's just, you get these cult of personalities. You get these strong people that they're really good in something. Yeah. You know, they earn their clout in a specific field.
Absolutely.
But then people start worshiping them in everything. Mm-hmm. And I think even just the concept of worshiping somebody, just period, is just such a flaw. And I do think it's a dying part of our culture. Yeah. But it's still fucking here.
Yeah. I would say, I definitely do think it's dying. I don't think as many people do it, but it seems that the people who still have that belief structure are getting more intense. Mm-hmm. You know, they're definitely like digging in the heels more about things. Like, I mean, you see it on Twitter. Like, Twitter is such a weird, dark, awful place, but I love Twitter. It's the worst and the best at the same time. There's some good stuff on there, but you see it all the time. You know, with how people like who are not Bernie supporters like think of Bernie bros, but they're like doing the same thing, just on the opposite side of things, like the anti-Bernie bros.
But then the media won't call that out
yeah.
because that doesn't fit the narrative of that Bernie supporters are uniquely terrible. I've read so many tweets of like Biden people, Kamala people, that I'm like, this is grotesque.
Yeah.
And yet those people don't get the attention because that doesn't. Here's the thing. And I saw an awesome, I want to say it was Ben Dixon that might have been tweeting about it. But he was saying, he's like, they're using this narrative of politeness to silence you.
Yeah.
Because right now, the reason why people are so mad on Twitter is because they don't get representation on TV. Yeah. So they're like, well, I'm going to just tweet at you idiot reporters and call you out for your hackery.
Yeah.
And then they get all mad and like, oh my God, you're attacking me. And so then they go on TV and use their platform of millions of people to pretend like the harassment they're personally receiving from having an opinion or whatever that maybe is kind of a bad opinion or a bad take to have objectively. And then they try to pin it on regular people who are just mad that they don't have a voice. This is their one chance to say something.
Exactly. And that's the thing that makes me so upset, I think, about it all is like people like really like this is a democratic tool, you know. It allows us direct contact. That's like the whole thing about Twitter. And people who have the power plus Twitter they just attempt to manipulate and use it in just such nefarious ways. It's so gross. I hate it so much.
It is. It's very gross. I mean, and it's frustrating too because you know that these people live in a bubble.
Yeah.
You know that these people don't really know what regular people are living like. You know that they're personally buddy buddies and elbows to elbows with the political class, the wealthy elites. You know, they're trying to get access so that they can get interviews and they want access to the campaign. They want access. And so they don't want to upset anybody. So they don't do any real journalism. They don't press them on real questions because they know if they book that interview and then they're actually tough on the politician, then they're never going to get them back.
Yeah. Dude, that's honestly a problem like in more than just politics too. You see it a lot in architecture. They do a lot of like junkets. So, they'll pay for whomever's a writer to go out and write about stuff. And a lot of times they don't disclose that in the articles when they're like talking about a building or talking about a festival and different architects and stuff. And there's just like journalistically, like the integrity of it, like you need to kind of disclose those things.
Yeah.
Because like if you don't and you're putting that stuff out there, like you're just a mouthpiece for the person who you're reporting on.
Oh, they're just stenographers.
Yeah, you're not really being a journalist. Like you really have to ask like the hard questions and be honest. Like if something's just objectively good, it can be good, and you can write about that. But at the same time, don't act and pretend that like this private equity firm that flew out to go review this giant building that they just built that they don't have a different interest at heart. It's not about sharing, the building. There's more to it. Everything.
And I mean, I think that goes then perfectly in line with your worldview and why you would make your blog, because your blog is specifically designed to be like, no, I'm going to just be real about it. This is my real opinion. And, it'll be a platform that if you want to take advantage, you can, but just know I'm going to be honest. So if I don't like it, I am going to say I don't like it.
Exactly. And like, I don't want it to come off as like being like a hater.
No,
right?
Because that's not what it's going to be.
And I see people throw that term around so much. And like, there's a difference between being a hater and just not liking something.
Yes.
And that concept seems so lost on everyone nowadays. Like, it's okay. Like, you don't have to like everything all the time.
Yes.
And that, like, the fact that, like, we don't recognize that is just so insane to me. Like, for a long time, you fake your happiness by doing that. Or you don't recognize, like, how terrible things can be or how, things are starting to turn if you just think that everything's all hunky-dory. Like you see it now with people with like the coronavirus who are just like, oh, I'll never get sick. I don't blah, 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 blah. I don't care. It's like, maybe you won't, but like, if you don't care about it, like there's a good chance somebody could, because you're kind of being a dick by not washing your hands.
Well, and especially because the coronavirus specifically has such a delayed onset that you can be walking around as a carrier and an infectious, giving it to people not knowing. And you might even have a mild case of it, not realizing it's corona. And thanks to incompetent in chief, we're not running enough tests.
Yeah.
We had a bunch of faulty tests. Like there are, I was just watching a video earlier today where they were talking about how, I believe South Korea is doing 10,000 tests a day.
Yeah.
Okay. We've done like 4,000 tests total.
Yeah. So
we're America.
I know. It's insanity. So my mom actually works at the hospital where the first 2 coronavirus patients in Illinois were. And she works in administration, so she's fine. But she was telling me that like the CDC provided all these materials and stuff because, you know, you need to be prepared worst case scenario. And the patients were looking up. I think they've been fine and like returned to like home quarantine. But the CDC took all the stuff back. Like they're not equipping hospitals to handle stuff. And the worst part is like if there are 2 cases like in a hospital, like in that area, that means there are more, right?
Yep.
Because they're not going out and testing, you know, they're trying to like backtrack and figure out all the people that the infected persons may have come in contact with. But as we know, like the incubation period's like, I think it's like 2 weeks. It's a long time.
2 weeks.
So, you know, they can test them now and 3 days later they could be sick. And the CDC is like taking the material because they didn't prepare the government.
Because they don't have enough.
Yeah. Well, they did just sign that bill. It's like $8 billion. And I think it's supposed to be allocated in the next 30 days. Half of it's supposed to be allocated in the next 30 days. But I mean, the clock's ticking, man.
Well, so here's the thing. Another thing that I don't know if enough people know is that when the Ebola crisis happened, Obama actually appointed a bunch of different people to kind of connect several parts of government that normally really just are not connected.
Yeah.
You know, we think of government as this big monolith, but really it's a bunch of independent departments kind of with their own needs and desires. And so he created like this pandemic task force that was meant to unite, you know, different parts of production. So, you know, having the CDC and the FDA and like all these other things that are going to be needed to make sure that we can allocate resources on a massive scale because, you know, this is one kind of virus, but there are other ones that could spread that could have a completely different characteristic. So you would need different responses for that. And Trump fired all of those people. Not because there was like it didn't cost that much money. It wasn't a big drain on the budget. He fired him specifically because Obama did it, and he's trying to undo everything Obama did.
Yeah, those people are the worst part is like those are career bureaucrats. Like, you know, they may vote one way or another. They may have been a political appointee, but I feel like I can say in earnest, like the Obama administration did a good job of like putting people in places, positions like that where they actually have a skill set that can be used in like a worst case scenario. And just getting rid of that, like we're seeing like how terrible it can be.
Yeah.
You know, like the mortality rate's like 3.4%, which is super high.
Very high.
It still may not be the volume of people who have died as a result is not as high as the flu, but the mortality rate is like significantly higher.
Not yet.
Exactly.
You know, give it more time to start spreading, especially with us not testing and not knowing where it is and not quarantining properly.
Exactly.
I mean, the only reason why China's even remotely saying that they got it under control, which by the way, take everything they say with a grain of salt.
I've been so skeptical. I'm like pulling for them because I'm like, I don't want things to get worse. But also at the same time,
they're probably not telling the whole truth.
Yeah.
Well, let's say that they did somehow get it in line.
Yeah.
They quarantined entire fucking cities.
That like whole province, they have travel restrictions on that whole province.
And they have been shipping in like trucks of food, like 60 truckloads of food. That's something that, I'm sorry, America's not going to do.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you can only do something like that with an authoritarian state. Like, that's one of the few examples where, like, their, like, philosophy and government is actually going to be beneficial to them, even though they...
Despite the other
I mean, there's still...
massive amounts of negatives. But, yes, that is one where you can kind of fully take control and be like, nah, this is what we're doing.
Exactly. And then there's still egg on their face for how they handled the entire situation to begin with.
Definitely.
But... I mean, I guess props to them. They seem like they're working hard, which is good. I appreciate it.
I mean, it's in their, despite them being an authoritarian regime, it is in their best interest to make sure that not a bunch of people die. You know, they still need those people to do shit. So as much as they love to make people disappear, they also do need people to be in the factories and do all the jobs.
You know, like they got to keep it under control to...
maintain their control.
Yeah, exactly. You know, the illusion of good government and the illusion of everything's okay. They got to worry about that stuff still. So
yeah, I'm pretty sure all the people in China have no faith in their government.
Oh no, they're like really riled up over there. Like they're really, you know, I think like NPR and Fresh Air has interviewed some people, or not Fresh Air, This American Life. It's in China, but This American Life.
American China Life.
Well, you know, I was thinking about that. Like they did when the Hong Kong protests were going on. They went over there and interviewed.
Oh, they're still going on, aren't they?
Yeah, that's the crazy thing.
Yeah, they're still going on.
Like China right now is, it's like a boiling pot that's about to go over, you know? There's a lot of things going on there. And then they're still like trying to like control more of the South China Sea and the Pacific and become more of a player internationally and territory and stuff. There's just so many things going on with China and everything that they just interact with. It's nuts. It's tough to keep track of all this stuff.
Oh, there's too much. That's the thing. There's too much going on in the world. Yeah. Okay. What are we supposed to put our attention on? This is where we need trust in the media.
Yeah.
And the media is specifically not doing its job.
Yeah. It really is crazy when you think about it. And I think a lot of the reason that we actually are losing some of that trust is the way that the financial system works right now. Mm-hmm. Like the Tribune has been gutted. Countless other local and regional newspapers have just been, if they're not gutted and like, just like not themselves, mm-hmm. they're completely gone. Like the Tribune is like, if you go like to like Starbucks like tomorrow morning and pick up the Sunday edition of the Chicago Tribune and compare it to one from like even like 4 or 5 years ago, it's literally a shell of itself. It's not even the same. I think that the Denver Sun, or the main paper in Denver's gone. The main paper in Tampa's gone. The LA Times is still going strong. Washington Post is, because they've got Bezos backing them.
And the CIA, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. This isn't a conspiracy. The CIA has a deal with the Washington Post. Oh, yeah. And so that's why when Bernie ran in 2016, they had 16 negative stories in 16 hours. That's why anytime you see anything about Bernie, it's negative, because Bernie specifically made him bend the knee and pay people $15 an hour. So he fucking hates Bernie. So he's basically using all of the Washington Post's editorial powers to just completely smear him.
Yeah, like we're really at a point now in media. I mean, the newspaper is so important. We don't realize that with, CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, like that's not it. Like there needs to be a bigger base of reporting mm-hmm. than, just broadcast news channels. But we're down to so little that's left. And I mean, even now, like I subscribe to the New York Times. I like reading the Times and a lot of stuff that they put out, but they put out some just terrible things.
They endorse two candidates who are not in it anymore. Okay, let's just put it that way. They endorsed two candidates, which is already stupid, and neither one of those candidates are in the race anymore.
That was another egg on the face moment. But it's like, for as much good as they do things that are just like what are you doing, man? Like you're supposed to be the paper of like America, and you're just half-assing it. Like you're not putting enough effort into what you need to. And of course, like living in the Great Lakes, the Heartland, like we don't see things the same as people in New York. Mm-hmm. I mean, I personally do. I get the angle, but not everyone does, and that's fine. Indiana is very different than, or middle of nowhere Indiana is very different than New York City.
Oh yeah.
But there's that disconnect. If you think about it, like the papers that are still relevant on a national scale are the LA Times, the Post, and the New York Times, and it's the capital of the government, the financial capital of pretty much the world. And the biggest city on the West Coast, where Hollywood is, so it's the entertainment capital. Yep. So you're not really getting a representative view of what real Americans are going through, or their perspectives applied to news stories. Yep. Which is dangerous. Very dangerous.
Well, and that's where you got to look at their incentive structures, mm-hmm. and you also have to keep in mind that people write what they know, right? So they're going to write what is related to them. Mm-hmm. And so if a bunch of people who live in some of these big cities, they hang around a lot of somewhat wealthy to wealthy people, their view is going to be colored by that. It just is what it is. And so then on top of it, when you have like literal corporations funding your advertising, mm-hmm. that if you write a negative story about them, somebody from sales mm-hmm. is going to come to you and be like, they didn't really like that story that you wrote. Yeah. I'm not going to tell you can't write it, but we're going to shelf it if you do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so it's like, they're going to stick it somewhere. They're not going to tweet the link. They're going to put it.
They'll hide it. They'll bury it. And then one thing that was really interesting was after Bernie's crazy win in Nevada. Yeah. They had on Alexandra Rojas, who is like one of the leaders of Justice Democrats who helped get AOC elected, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar. It was co-founded by Cenk Uygur and Kyle Kulinski of Secular Talk on YouTube, if anybody ever watches them. And she was on there, and she like said in the most delicate way possible. It was actually hilarious to watch her try to not ether them to their face. And she was like, well, there aren't a lot of people that look like me or are my age group that are on these panels. and you guys aren't really getting a real view of how people view things, and people care about these issues. And she said it in the most polite way possible. I gotta say, shout out to Alexandra Rojas, because I would have been way more savage. But no, but the truth is like, young people, because of the way that structures work, young people haven't earned it enough to get onto the desk, right? Like, you have to work your way up in the system, and you can't get up there till you're like 40.
Yeah.
But then when you're 40, you have a different worldview. You have a different way of seeing things. Yeah. And there's a bunch of young people who, by the way, guess what, are the future of this world and have to deal with the planet that you guys have ruined. Yeah. We have to do something.
Yeah.
So if we're not getting representation on media, and guess what, the only people who even watch that are the old people who we need to hear us out.
Yeah.
Then there's the disconnect.
That's one of the things that gets me fired up, is the age perspective of things. Age and class, I think, are the two biggest issues kind of facing America right now. Class, because the real issue really is class, right? And they use race as a way to keep off the scent of class, and use race to basically turn like the lower and middle class against each other. And it's disgusting, and it's vile, and it's very awful. But class is really the thing that's causing it and generating it. Age, because like we have, I think, like 60 harvests left. And right now we have an administration that doesn't believe in climate change. And as great as Beyond Burgers are, and Impossible Burgers, and what we're able to do with technology, and maybe the ability to like clone and like grow meat in vats at some point, like there is not enough land, there is not enough soil, the weather patterns are changing. The Amazon is being harvested by another right-wing administration in Brazil. Yeah,
Bolsonaro.
Like, these are like, that's the real concern. Like, that's where things really need to be. Like, healthcare is a very, very, very big deal.
Coronavirus is a perfect example.
Exactly.
Of that.
Like, having healthcare for a lot of people is a big deal. But like, if we don't focus or even like acknowledge that we're like, my kids probably are going to be in some sort of Mad Max hellscape, or that it's a very real possibility, we're all screwed. Like, none of this is going to matter. And we don't have any, that is, I mean, how often have you heard anybody talk about any of that stuff in
just Bernie?
Exactly.
I legitimately, I don't really hear anybody else saying it. And when they do say it, then their solution sucks. So they'll like feed you the lip service of like, oh yeah, we got to do these things. But we'll figure it out by 2050. Like, we don't have till 2050.
We don't. Like, so it's 2020 now. We have, in theory, like around 60 harvests left. That's 2080. Joe Biden will probably be dead in like the next like 10, maybe 15 years.
Dude, his brain is already dead.
Yeah. Like, he's, kind of a zombie.
You know what's crazy? So this is something that I really wanted to spell, because this shit pisses me off. People have been trying to shout down people who are calling out his mental faculties as, it's just his stutter. Like, no. Watch a video from 4 years ago. I watched a video of him, by the way, praising Bernie Sanders. It was a great clip. They should use it as an ad.
I think I saw that,
Yeah, from 2016. Yeah. And that's a different Joe Biden.
Yeah.
If that Joe Biden was showing up today, I still would vote for Bernie Sanders.
Without a doubt, but I wouldn't be as scared.
But if Biden won, then I would at least think, well, at least he can handle a debate. Now, his record's awful, and that will never change.
Yeah.
But at least, like, he could handle himself. Like, this dude's going to get trounced in a debate if he wins.
The wild part is, too, Trump is also dealing with a lot of the same...
Oh, Trump's got dementia, too.
Like, crazy. I forget who the guy is, but he's on Twitter, and he does, like, threads every day about, like, the presidential appearances, and when he gets, they abscond with him off to, like, Walter Reed Medical Facility.
Yeah.
Because they're doing like MRIs and CAT scans of his brains all the time. Because like, I mean, you can tell from like, as like silly as it sounds, like Trump in like 2012 to now, like another case of like, holy shit, like this guy's brain is like melting. Like he is like a
upper
melting
Trump versus downer Trump.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it's crazy. Like he can't recognize words. Like one of the things they notice or they speak of is like his gait when he walks from Marine One, the helicopter. Like he
doesn't even turn his neck.
Like Melania's hand with like it's a Vulcan death grip because like he's not going to use a cane because he cares about appearances and everything. But like that deterioration of the nerves and the ability to like walk normally, that's a huge sign of that mental capacity fading.
Yes,
and it's scary like that. Like when we vote for politicians, we're really voting for policies and what they're going to do.
Not personalities.
Exactly. But seeing people who don't have like full capacity to make these decisions or even understand really what's going on is terrifying.
It is.
And I love Bernie, but right now there are 3 people who have any sort of shot of becoming president, and they're all exponentially closer to my grandmother's age than even my parents' age. And my parents aren't young.
Yep. Yeah. Well, and so here's the thing. I love Bernie, and I acknowledge that Bernie's old.
Yeah.
But tell me he doesn't look like the youngest one out of those 3.
Yeah, he's
like he does, like
definitely
mentally.
Yeah, he's definitely the most fit.
He's the most fit.
A nautical mile,
and
I would say.
Yes, he had the heart attack. I will fully acknowledge that.
Yeah.
But the heart stent procedure that he had is very common. And in fact, Bloomberg had one several years ago, right? And he, ever since then, to me, looks better. He looks better than he did before the heart attack, honestly.
I mean, shout out to modern medicine. Like, you can do like preventative care and do things that like really give you more longevity and the ability to like stay in the game, so to say.
He used to be a marathon runner too. So, Bernie's always been an athlete. Like he's always been active, and he's never really had a health scare until that heart attack.
Yeah.
So given his age and given the fact that everybody were competing for president is old, he's the best fit one.
Yeah.
Not to mention his policies actually inspire people.
Yeah.
Whereas like Joe Biden's like, we're going to go back to where we used to be.
Let me tell you about that real quick. So like I said, I'm really, really, really passionate about architecture and urban planning. Urban planning is one of the most like neglected policy areas outside of like sustainability. It's incredibly important to our day-to-day lives, and nobody gives a shit about it. Biden's transportation policy plans revolve around automobiles and resurfacing roads and making all that stuff better. Granted, our infrastructure is not good at all. However, we need exponential, like, more amounts of public transportation and to make the systems better, because like our urban areas are expanding. Our roads, like Chicago, for example, is the Great Fire in 1871. We were able to have the city rebuilt on a grid then. However, that was over 100 years ago. Cars weren't a thing then, right? So now we have more people in the metro area than ever before, more cars on the roads, it's deterring things faster, and you're not able to get to and from work quicker. And on top of it, how many electric vehicles? It's still a fraction of what it should be. So we're producing more carbon emissions from our vehicles. We still have a huge dependence on oil in that case. And when you look at it, like, it has a resounding effect through the entire economy and just like our day-to-day lives, because we're so automobile focused and automobile driven, and in 2020 trying to invest more money and more capital into that just isn't wise. It's a very outdated like view of transportation and urban policy, and it's just it's completely ineffective. You look everywhere else around the world and they just don't think like this, and they have better lives, and they have older cities. They found different ways to incorporate public transportation and bicycles and how they lay their cities out, so that we can really take advantage of alternate ways to get to and from places that are more efficient than one person getting into a 4-person car, a 5-person car, a 6-person car, and taking up all that space. It's just like, that to me was the like straw in the basket. It was just like, there is no way I will vote for Biden in the primary. Like, not that I would have anyways, but like once I saw that became like I need to get like active and go talk to my people and make sure they know about this. Because I evangelize about like urban planning policy like it's my job. It's super important.
And that's something that I think people don't think about. And that they would be behind you if they were just told about it. You know what I mean? I don't think anybody's going to argue with you like, I want a bullet train. Or like, like I want things that get me there quicker. I want more trains that connect so we don't have to fly. I want more trains that connect to major cities of America. How cool would it be if we had a train system, a mass like bullet train system, we're talking super fast, that goes from each major city across the country. So there's some way to connect LA to New York. There's some way to connect, even if it's, you got to hop on a couple and you got to make some connections at some stations. How amazing would that be?
It would be amazing. The one problem with that is right now, and this is kind of the thing that's hindered America throughout from, the word go, after we, won independence, filed the Constitution, all that sort of good stuff. The significance of states' rights and like the commerce clauses that states get to decide affects all of that, because Amtrak is the it's publicly subsidized, but it's the train company that gets us to and from. That's Union Station and stuff. Indiana, our next door neighbor just to the east, will not allow Amtrak to run more than like 2 trains through Indiana a day or something. It's really obscure, but like they don't allow you to run trains as often as you would think, because Amtrak actually in the last year has been trying to like get more regional train service. So more trains from Chicago to Milwaukee, Chicago to Detroit, Chicago to Indianapolis, Chicago to Louisville, Chicago to St. Louis. But Indiana is really like hampering that process. Why, I have no idea.
Yeah, that seems dumb.
They are, they have the ability because it's their state, and they don't want more trains, more commuter trains, more passenger trains.
Well, and so that's where the argument for me would be, for certain things like this, the private aspect is not the best way to do it, because you kind of need it to be just hey, this is for the collective good. Yeah. We're all going to just agree that we're going to put, instead of maybe let's take a few billion out of the military defense industrial funding complex, and let's put it into maybe, some kind of infrastructure.
You could even spin it like, God forbid anything ever happen here. We have a great rail system. We can get supplies to and from.
Yes.
You can appease some generals in some capacity.
Helps your defensive structure, right?
Exactly.
And that's the whole reason why we have an interstate, was for that exact reason. So the same concept of the interstate, let's apply that to mass transportation.
Dude, it would be so clutch. I mean, Chicago has a great transit system, but if you look at the CTA map, right? Everything, it's a wheel and spoke system. So everything comes to the hub, which is the loop, and then it breaks out. Except when you go to the south and southeast sides, where there's a huge population, but there isn't any light rail. The L stops at the Green Line at 63rd and Stony Island, 63rd and King Drive, something like that. Near-ish the University of Chicago. But the University of Chicago, one of the best, biggest research universities in the world, in the country, you can't get there except for taking, there's like 2 buses that go there.
Yeah, which that's...
Right?
Yeah, that sucks.
Right? There's a
buses
ton of
suck. I mean, I'm in favor
of
them.
Like the buses are good. They're useful, but like...
They're late all the time.
Compared to the L, where, the only other traffic are other L trains.
Yeah.
It's just mind-boggling. And there's huge amounts of the population in the city of Chicago that doesn't have access to it. It's the only access they have is the Metra Electric District, which is more expensive. It doesn't run as frequently, and it's on an old infrastructure, so it breaks down a lot.
So how could we upgrade the L more than just laying new track, which I think we should do too?
Yeah.
How can we make it so it's not so fucking loud? There are quieter trains that exist in the world. So why is the L the loudest train I've ever heard?
I don't know. That's a great question. Because I've been to New York
loud
too, and the subway is pretty loud, but like the Blue Line, if you're walking on the Blue Line in like Wicker Park on Milwaukee Avenue, oh my God! Like now, after years of walking under it, I will cover my ears because I'm like, I think I'm going to hurt and harm my hearing.
Yes.
If I don't protect my ears.
It's noise pollution.
Yeah.
It's straight up noise pollution.
It's crazy. Well, part of that with the Blue Line, and I think they tried to fix it a few years ago, but that track was very old. Like very old. It was that part of the Blue Line actually was part of the Lake Street L when it was originally built. So it'd go from like Lake Street, it'd come in, and then it would V out up Milwaukee Avenue, and then it would terminate at Logan Square. And that particular part was very old, and it's the loudest part of the track. And I think that's why. I think it's just old infrastructure. It's old rickety cast iron and steel.
How much does it cost to fix it?
I don't know. I do know that they're working on a red line reimprovement plan that's been going on for a few years. And before they started that is when they were working on the Blue Line, and they redid the stations and some of the track. But I think they would realistically, they would actually have to shut down the Blue Line for the better part of a year. Yeah. Between Division and Belmont to actually build new structures to lay the track on that aren't as noisy. I think New York has similar problems, but the trains are just a little different too. They're a little bigger and they don't run as fast, I think. Or maybe they run faster, which sometimes can make the sound less. But yeah, it's weird, man. I don't know. The Green Line isn't quite as loud. Yeah. The Pink Line is. The Blue Line right there is terrible.
The Brown Line's pretty loud too, I find the Brown Line's pretty loud.
The Brown Line's weird too because that's a super, super old section of track. That was a private train company for a while before it all got consolidated. And that's why it takes forever. It's got all these little stops, and you can't they can't open up the throttle or anything to actually move.
Yeah, you can't, because you're stopping like every 5 seconds.
Yeah, seriously, it's like every 600 feet. You need to throw a baseball as far as you can, between stations.
Yeah, no, literally, it feels like that, and that's why the red line is so much faster.
Yeah,
where you'll tread a lot of the same track for periods of time, and the red line's just cooking past the brown line.
Yeah, that's nuts, man. We take it for granted how effective it is compared to like BART or MARTA in the Bay Area or Metro Atlanta, but it like there's still a lot to be desired.
Yeah.
And the wheel and spoke system, like, it's good, it does its job, but like the fact that there isn't any north-south light rail west of the loop, it's not good. Yeah. People got to not everybody lives in the business district. Not everybody works there.
But the people who are passing the laws do, and so that's all they care about.
Yeah,
it's only what they care.
They have tried to
being affected by.
Well, and part of it too is like the state of Illinois and the city of Chicago have no money at all.
Well, it's corrupt. I mean, so whatever money's there, it goes to who knows where.
But they've been doing like the express bus lanes on Ashland and Western and stuff too, which is good. That's been a few years as a pilot program. It helps, but I mean, like at the end of the day, like those are still two of our main thoroughfares. At their widest, there's still 4 lanes, and Western and Ashland are like the 2 most traversed streets in the city. Like there's more traffic on those than anywhere else. So an express bus on the busiest street is still a bus on the busiest street.
Yeah, and that's where you run into the problem that you were saying before of too many cars on the road in the first place.
Yeah, see, it all comes back, man. Like it all, like if we were to just like not have as many cars or more ways to get places, like your quality of life would go up. You wouldn't be getting road rage. You wouldn't be, screaming because it took you an hour to get home because there was that much traffic on a 4-lane street that was planned in 1873.
Yeah. Well, and I guess my question is, because I don't know enough about this stuff, but I do care about it from the standpoint of I'd love to see us actually go to the 21st century, is like who's in charge of making these big decisions? I'm assuming they're engineers of some kind, right? Like,
Yeah, so there's a couple of different people who are involved with like the decision-making process. There's a director of planning who they just brought in. I forget her name, but she had a lot of success in Minneapolis. Lori Lightfoot got like a new and innovative person, which is very good. The Civic Federation, which is kind of a watchdog group with how the city spends its money. They do a lot of urban planning, and they do a lot of like studies to figure out how much things are and how possible they are. And then the University of Chicago does a lot of research and that sort of stuff as well. So you get kind of like in any other sector of like government, you're seeing groups that are trying to figure out how to do things better. There are groups that are trying to figure out how much it's going to cost the taxpayer. And then, there's the people in the government office who have to implement it. For a long time, the city of Chicago and the state of Illinois have had intense cronyism. So you didn't have professionals in posts for a long time. My dad, he worked for the mayor's office back in the middle 70s. He's old, not a super old guy. He's kind of old. He's my guy. Shout out, Dad. And he was tasked with doing an audit of how this was when the Sky was being built on the southeast side, with like how they were spending their money and what's this, what's that. And he was telling me, he's like, he started digging around, and all these like crony guys from the southeast were like, kind of tried to intimidate him about like you're digging around stuff that like you have no business digging around. Like you write this down, you send it back, and that's it. My dad did not work for
mob. I think the mob is part of it. Like,
well, I mean, like the Democratic machine, man, in Chicago is, the biggest gang in Chicago is the Chicago Police. The second biggest is probably the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
The way that they can do things is insane, and the influence they have is crazy. And this is, I think Jane Byrne was mayor at the time, so this is a transition era between Daley's and Harold Washington. So it was kind of like, oh, reform, we're going to care about this stuff. But things were so entrenched because the county is so closely tied to how the city can spend its money that the county is still incredibly corrupt. Even though Lori Lightfoot's in, and she's really a political outsider, given like what Chicago politics is. Tony Preckwinkle, who ran against Lori Lightfoot, is still president of Cook County. she's still the county president.
Fuck. And I think that's the biggest problem is that, even if you get people in power, there's still going to be other obstacles that are entrenched structurally.
Yeah. What's weird too is Chicago, because like you look at New York, like 5 boroughs make up the city of New York, and the mayor really is like a president, because there are borough mayor or borough presidents or borough mayors. There's a top executive in each borough, and then each boroughs are different counties too, but the mayor really is the one who consolidates and holds all the power there. So like when they want to change policy, they can change policy because they're the guy. In Chicago, it's tricky, man. Like the county is big. Like Cook County can vote a different way than Chicago, and they can pretty much split an election.
Yeah.
So it's tricky. There's a lot of things you have to, like really like consider and think about when trying to like implement policy in Chicago. Even just like corruption like withstanding. Like it's probably more difficult to implement it here than any other major city, I would guess.
Oh, I would think so. I mean, this was voted again the most corrupt city in America this year. Yeah.
So look at not to harp on the biggest gang in Chicago, the Chicago police, but like they're in a contract battle with the union, the Fraternal Order of Police in Chicago. They're trying to get an 18% raise. Part of the reason we don't have any money in the municipality of Chicago is because of all these payouts that they have to give for like police conduct. They've paid out tons of money.
Not to mention the black sites.
Yeah.
Like, let's talk about that.
Like,
I mean,
it's insane, and they're trying to like
that's some like MK Ultra shit. You know what I mean?
Dude, it's crazy. Like the whole Berg scandal, I still don't think people understand like how truly terrible and awful that is. Like you hear about like cops in LA like taking felons and dropping them off in different areas and stuff. They did that, and also just like tortured people like the CIA would want to do.
Yep. Yeah.
And like those are municipal cops, man. Like it's insane. So yeah,
so basically Chicago's fucked and there's no way to fix it. Good. What a great thing.
And not to be super negative, but
but you got to be realistic about what you're facing. And so that's been like, I guess my argument for this election is like, Bernie plays too nice.
Yeah.
And we need to play dirty. And I don't mean dirty like stoop to their level. I mean, they want to complain about Bernie bros. Let's complain about Biden bros. Let's complain.
Or just Joe Biden being a super creep himself.
Oh yes, yeah. But I'm saying like we should go low. Now Bernie personally he'll never go low. But I think his surrogates should by all means go low on those things.
I mean, you honestly like
play the double standard.
Yeah, you got to open it up. It doesn't serve you or the people you're trying to serve to not do everything you can to win the election.
Yeah. Like, especially when it's going to get handed to Trump if Biden wins.
Yeah, like this is a really critical stage in like not just progressive politics, but just like everyday people's lives, like if you want to continue to have like a solid normal life and not have to work like it's like all the progress that we made in the past 100 years is kind of evaporating.
It's being undone.
Yeah.
Actively.
And like if you want to go back, like the work week used to be 6 days a week. Like the billionaires, all the philanthropists, this is great libraries, Mr. Rockefeller, Mr. Carnegie. But those guys like really controlled everything in everyone's lives. And we're going back to that. And instead of it, I mean, obviously Jeff Bezos is, basically a clone of that. Years later.
Completely.
But you think about it, like private equities too, man. Like they're accomplishing the same things that those titans of industry did before. And like having somebody like Bernie who cares about the working class is important. Regardless of what you believe about more social politics, like at its core, like, do you want your life to be better or do you want it to get worse? Because
objectively,
like regardless of your social politics, man, like if we allow things to continue to go the way that they are, they're going to take away like the protections and the kind of basic human rights that like not everyone else, but a lot of other developed countries just get.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, do you want to be able to, or do you want to have to stick at a job that is terrible and treats you like shit because you need health insurance? Like, you should be able to like go to a doctor. You shouldn't have, it shouldn't be $20,000 because like something happened to you, and your job is going to litigate the hell out of like that workplace accident that happened. Like we should be able to just kind of like live as freely as possible. And that's always the ironic thing to me about it, because like the farther you go on the spectrum, right, you run into libertarians, right, who are just all about like individual freedoms and stuff.
Yeah. But they forget that you have no power as an individual.
Yeah, they're disillusioned with how that individual freedom exists, because if you allowed those people to do everyone to be able to do whatever they want, they're going to coalesce because they have more resources than you, and they're going to drop hammers on everyone, and then we're all going to be screwed.
You know what's libertarianism? Feudalism.
Yeah.
But just minus kings and queens. That's literally what it is. It's just like, oh, okay, so you can become a vassal, and then they'll be the leader of the castle, and because you don't have enough power or leverage or resources, you're gonna have to just suck up to that guy. Like, I think I understand the concept of wanting the personal freedom, but I think they really don't think through the longer implications of what it means.
I mean, like, I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, one thing I really, really want to do is like buy a good amount of acreage up in like the north woods of like Wisconsin or the UP, and like build a home and live up there, because like I love that part of the country. I think it's beautiful. I also I love how peaceful it is. I love being like alone with my 3 dogs and my partner, and being able to just kind of like live and be stress free. I think that's great. I think like that idealism, I think that would probably be pretty similar to what like a lot of libertarians believe. But like politically and policy wise, like you can want that, but that can't be the basis for how you want things to be run, because it's just not going to happen.
Yeah, that's just not how people are going to be.
Yeah, like there also just like how many people are there in the country? Just like 333 million people. Like there's not enough land, there's not enough space. You have to be able to understand and accommodate people who are different than you. And I think that's like one of the big like flaws in that thinking, because like if you don't think about those people, then like your dream isn't going to happen. If like, oh, about this land in this corner. What happens when people come running, people come through and
want to take it.
Exactly.
Oh, well, I'll defend my land. Okay, but with what? Because they have bigger guns than you.
Yeah,
and more
or there's way more of them than you, like the Spartans lost at Thermopylae. As cool as it was, as much as some people love to idealize that, they did lose.
They still lost. Yeah, they still lost. Yeah, I think it's just important to remember that like solidarity with your fellow people is ultimately actually, selfish in a way, because it helps you have a better life.
Exactly. And that's the thing that like always confuses me. Like, if we all say that we want to do this, we'll all kind of get what we want. We don't have to infight.
Yeah.
And it goes back to that class thing that I said earlier. We use the social politics to leverage one another against each other. And then people with the moneyed interests can buy elections and do whatever they want to do and stuff.
Because they divided you.
Yep.
What we've seen is that people have the power. Is that when we do get together, like some people did in Nevada, where they just blew everyone else out the water, and Bernie won overwhelmingly.
Yeah.
Like that was a bunch of people getting together.
Yeah.
And in Super Tuesday, that was a bunch of people who were scared, but they got together, and although they backed a horse that isn't actually going to help them and probably would lose to Trump, they backed it because they felt like, I don't know who to pick. All of the people who I wanted to support just dropped out. I guess I'll go with the guy that they backed.
Right.
Not understanding the power structure that was pushing behind this to prop him up as a one last ditch effort to survive in this dying version of our democracy.
Yeah. It boggles the mind.
It does.
If you spend too much time thinking about it, you'll end up in a very negative place, because you're like, the answers are right here in front of us. It is not that complex. But that's where messaging comes in. Yeah.
We have to get better at messaging. Because
Absolutely.
clearly, the revolution and all that has really resonated well with the people that's already been activated.
Yeah.
But we need to get regular people who don't realize all this shit's happening and who aren't fully tuned in. We need to show them that, Bernie's positions are actually really not that extreme at all, and that they're pretty normal given like not only the global scale, but in America. That was mainstream. All of his ideas were mainstream ideas decades ago, before the media was continually bought out. Really, television kind of fucked everything up, because once we got television allowed corporations to buy up influence, to put out certain ideas, to propagate propaganda at a rate that is coordinated and is effective, and is probably using techniques designed by the CIA that I'm sure that they learned about disinformation campaigns from overthrowing other governments.
Yeah, and when you think about it too, like there are only so many TV channels, and there's somebody controlling how many TV channels there are too. So like,
it's like 6 companies that own all media companies.
Yeah, like and it's pretty much everything's becoming Disney here.
Yeah, for real.
But yeah, it's nuts. I mean, you think about it, like there are just a couple of things, like just like different approaches that they could take to like just get everyday people more engaged. Like the urban planning thing, like I guess nobody thinks about that, but like, do you want to be able to get home from work quicker?
And everyone would say yes.
Yeah, like, do you not want to have potholes? You know, it kind of goes back to that, you know, like politicians will fill potholes come election time. It's like, we can still do that, and we can do that on a bigger scale and make your life better, you know. But, you know, I think there are other things that a lot of people care about, or maybe not that they care about more, but just that are a bigger focus. But there are also just as many people who are fine.
Yeah.
Maybe not just as many.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, there are a lot of people who are like...
There are enough people who are okay enough, like through Stockholm Syndrome, of just being like, I guess this is how it is.
Yeah, they definitely like want to maintain the status quo, but there are things like if you talk to somebody, they'll be like, oh yeah, this sucks. Like the CTA sucks. Like, it's terrible. The freeway, there's too much traffic. How do you fix more traffic?
Yep.
It takes paradigm shift with urban planning policy, with transportation policy, you know? And like, I think it's a way, it's like a non-partisan thing too. I think it'd be a good way to
it is a non-partisan
approach people on the other side of the aisle and be like, hey man, you want to be a one issue voter, you should care about this.
Yeah, for real. And I think most people will get on board on both sides of the aisle. I think just the key is messaging, finding a way to get both sides to see the commonality between their class interests and the political class interests, because they're different. And realizing that we're all on the same team. We can argue about the minutia of certain things, but I think we all agree, let's get these fuckers out of office.
Yeah, seriously.
Not just Trump. I mean, other politicians on both sides of the aisle.
You know, the funny thing too about it is like, the economic interest, the productivity would just skyrocket. If people are like not angry after coming into work, like, work better.
Yep.
You can ship more things. If there are less cars on the road, things get there faster. People spend more money.
Well, and that's another part that I don't understand why people don't really see the connections is that's a feedback loop. Yeah. You know, and if you change the feedback loop where somebody feels good, they do better work, from their better work, they get more productivity, from the more productivity, you make more money. You know, like it's an obvious cycle.
You know what it is too? Like that's kind of like a building block for the whole like concept of like capitalism and bootstrapping and the concept of like, oh, well, I want to make more money so I can have X and I can have Y and I can have Z. If they come into the office in a good mindset, like they can make more money. They'll want to get you know, do this and that and this. And I don't know. It makes too much sense. That's why it doesn't work.
Exactly. Well, thank you, Eric. Thanks for coming on, man.
Course,
this has been a lot of fun. I was not expecting to go to the urban planning thing, but I love that that's a passion of yours because I do think that that's very important.
It's one of the things I care about most in this world. And like, if you ever run into me at a bar, I will talk to you for 2 hours about it. I hope one day to like give like just a, you know, like a casual TED talk about it and about why we should care more.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Hey. There's no reason not to.
Yeah, and there will be a bunch of urban planning and architecture books and some of the book reports that go up on the blog and stuff. So definitely make sure to check those out.
Where can people find you?
Yeah, so right now I am on Twitter at Bon_the_builder and then on Instagram at Eric Bonster. IG for OSTbloc is just OSTbloc.
Nice.
And then Instagram for Unjaded is Jaded_un. But I will you can always find those on my personal pages, and hopefully you'll be able to find those on other people's pages here soon too.
Cool. Yeah, and I'll have you send me all the links. So I'll put them in the description of the episode. But awesome, this was fun, and
yeah, dude,
I look forward to doing this again. and I want to check back in when you've made some progress on it since the release, and let's see where it all went.
Definitely, man.
All right, cool. Peace.